Hello, City Skylines fans. I'm SocksWayUp, and welcome back to another episode of Lake Sockside. Today is episode number 23. We're going to focus on a small area of the city. You can see we're in the farm town area. I know in America we buy too much crap and we don't have anywhere to store it. So U-Haul and other companies like that have these storage units around the world, around the country for that reason. And that's what we're building today. I've done a lot of traveling over the last year and I've seen these are everywhere. They're everywhere. People just have to have storage. And so what we're doing here is we're providing that for the town. It's kind of my idea, this rural area. We needed to figure out what to do with the space. And I thought this was a cool opportunity to kind of build a specific type of commercial or industry. I guess it's a commercial, I guess. You know, you go there, you get a service is provided to you. You can rent out a unit, store all of your extra materials and goods and furniture and pictures and all the things over the years you've accumulated and just don't have anywhere to put in your house. Maybe it's just the Christmas decorations or the Halloween decorations. I know that's what we do. Anyways, let's move on. So you can see we start out with a couple rows of these separated buildings that have units on each side of them. Honestly, I don't know how realistic that is because you would have shared units that way, but I thought from the time I've spent traveling recently, I've seen them like this exact layout where you have a bunch of them together, then you have some separate ones. I don't know. I think it turned out pretty cool, more realistic for me. So we're gonna keep going with that. And we just kind of lay them all out. We move them around here, try to get as many as we can to kind of maximize the profit for this, business owner, trying to get as many of these units in as possible in this area. And it's gonna be, a perfect service for the people of the town. One of the things that I kind of learned about City Skylines, and I guess I forgot or relearned, but we're building this entire complex, and then because of the magic of Move It, we can move it around exactly where we want it long term. Honestly, we could even duplicate this and put it in a couple different places. Might be something that we do to kind of fill some space. It's something that could be repeated. It's larger. I kind of think it'd be cool to have a large asset like this, but you can see here we are moving it, trying to figure out exactly where we want it long term. It moves again in the future, just a heads up. This next segment of the build is close to my heart. In early 2000 or mid 2020, we decided to buy a camper trailer to go camping and get away from the city, get away from COVID. And one of the things I discovered was storing these. I didn't have a house that had property or a gate that I could pull my trailer into the back of the property and keep it there because of HOAs and homeowners associations. We were not allowed to store it there. So I found out that all of these U-Haul places, or a lot of them, have specific locations for storing things like RVs and Winnebagos and boats and all kinds of recreational vehicles. And that's kind of what we're mimicking here. I think it was awesome. I wanted to have it covered originally. I was looking at assets, trying to figure out how to make it a covered parking lot. And then I kind of just looked at the area. We're in the farm area of Lake Sockside or Thorntail. So I figured maybe it shouldn't be covered. It's maybe lower income in this area, so they couldn't afford to build a complex that had the covered because usually they charge more. So maybe the people here wouldn't be able to make the payments to offset the cost of building that. So that's where the thought process went in. Right now, our camper's sitting at one of these, just waiting to be used. Kind of miss it now that we talk about it, but here we go. We're moving it again. This is the final location. This time we actually changed where the entrance is. We're gonna move it farther away from that intersection. We're gonna swap these two buildings out because that one we're using as the main office. It gets rotated again to make the parking fit later on. It makes sense. So the reason I did that was I didn't want the entrance to be so close to the intersection because of traffic issues. We are starting to see those traffic issues in Lake Sockside. We might have to have an episode fixing it. Things are okay. But here you can see we're adding in the dirt. I was going to use the decals that I've used in other episodes, but right here I thought it looked better blending the dirt, kind of leaking into the asphalt for the road. And this is something else that we change later on. I love showing the thought process in these videos. Another build and another decoration segment. Here we're using a fence network. I've decided to only use fence networks most of the time. Always is a strong word. That's what we've been leaning towards because they're easier to make. One of the things that I've been doing is just laying them down in the vicinity of where I want them long term, and then using Move It to move them into the final location. I know we've talked about that a lot, but I just want to touch on that again. If you're wondering why I'm kind of just loosey-goosey, that's a weird phrase. I haven't used that in years. Well, I'm just laying these around in random areas. That's why I get them out there and then I move them to where I want them because I hate fences. But the process works for me at least. And one of the things I was thinking about when I was building this area is I wanted a gate, an entry gate that maybe you have to have a code for to let you in. And then again, I was going back in my brain about the travels I've had and seeing these different locations. And in this farm area, I think that people would be a little less worried about security than they would be maybe in the downtown area of Lake Sockside. So we're gonna leave the fence there, but we're not gonna have necessarily an entry gate. At this point in the video, we transition into starting to decorate some of the parking lots back here for the RV vehicles and the, well, that's kind of redundant, RV vehicle, recreational vehicles. So some of the trailers, the campers, the Winnebagos, the boats, the trucks, the randomness, this storage of parking. That's what we're decorating here. And we use 3 of the spaces for a regular parking spot and then line them up together. There is a trick you can use and Move It to just line up the assets. I do that later on. I don't think I showed in the recording, but I remembered it. And if you're doing something like this, definitely try to use that. Use those 3 little dots over there in the Move It app or the Move It mod. And there's a lot of tricks that you can do. Look up some videos on that. It's a pretty handy tool. Again, Move It's coming in handy. We're copying and pasting this, and then we're realizing that we didn't line up these vehicles at all. So we come in here, and now that we have these parking spaces, we're gonna move them around, get all these cars or all these vehicles in the right locations, have some empty ones, maybe change how deep some of the cars pulled in or some of the trailers. You know, in my experience in these places, sometimes you're nice, and here's where we're doing that. You're kind of setting yourself up for next time you come that it's easier to pull it out or put it in, or maybe you're lazy and you just kind of you didn't want to put it right in the center, so that's what you did. So yeah, that's what we're doing here, trying to add a little bit of realism and make it feel like people actually parked these and they're not just perfectly placed down. I think it turned out sweet though. Look at that, it's pretty awesome. So here is where we're talking about we changed this again. I decided since we made these actual parking lots with lines, might as well add the pavement in. And I used the surface network here because I wanted to pull it all the way up to the fence and get rid of the transition from the fence to the grass. And I think it works out pretty nice because it gives us the nice square edge like we created with the fence line. That was the thought process there. Let me know what you think. I found this build to be a blast to make. It was a nice, unique feature to add to Lake Sockside that we haven't done in any builds. I haven't seen them. I thought it was fun to make. I saw these assets. I've had them for over a year. Finally found a good place to use them, and that's what we did. Yeah, let me know what you thought. Thanks for hanging out on this episode of Lake Sockside. I have a little sneak peek of the next episode of Lake Sockside coming up for you. We did a little community poll. Thanks to everyone that responded to that. A couple of those options are going to be built. We're just going to build them in the order based off of the way the voting went. As of recording this video, the abandoned town is what won the vote so far. It's the leader, so that's what we're going with. And this is a little proof of concept of me just playing around with some of the ideas and some of the buildings that are out there on the workshop for us to make a town that was thriving at one point and then was abandoned. And that's what we're gonna go with. It's gonna be a blast to make. I've already made a good section of it in the background. You know, it is recorded. It will be part of the next episode, but I wanted to kind of show it off here as kind of a teaser for the next episode coming up. And I'm glad that I did that poll. It was kind of a random thing. I was gonna put something else on the community page, and so I decided to do that instead, and it turned out perfect because it's inspired me to move forward and add to Lake Sockside. And again, thanks for hanging out in this episode. Hopefully you liked our U-Store or U-Haul building complex that we've created, and I'll catch you on the next episode.